So I remember floating down to the body to see if there was any air coming in and, the heart, any movement from the heart. And as near as I could tell, it was dead. It was just gone. And I really, really was free. And I remember in my joy looking around and seeing all these kind of like bubbles or thought forms that were everywhere in the air. And every time I'd think a thought, a form would go out. And this idea, thoughts are things. They really are. They really are. And when I made th- that discovery, then I thought, hmm, I wonder if I can make something out of these thoughts.
My guest today is PMH Atwater, L.H.D. She is one of the original researchers in the field of near death studies, having begun her work in 1978 and completing 10 books on her findings, some of which have now been verified in clinical settings.
21 books.
21 books now. That's impressive. Her The Big Book of Near Death Experiences was featured in the online version of Newsweek Magazine. Near Death Experiences, The Rest of the Story, is her most complete and controversial book yet. She has won many awards, appeared on numerous TV shows, and spoken around the world, always inviting people to look past appearances for the truth that underlies what we think we know. PMH, you are just one of the pioneers of near death experiences. You are one of the most well known researchers out there, and it is just amazing to have you here on my show and to talk to my viewers and with me. I'm feeling very blessed. Thank you very much for being
Oh,
here.
it's fun to be here. We can clap hands. Fun to be here.
Well, you've had really quite a remarkable life. You've had three near-death experiences.
I was raped and became pregnant and miscarried and um all of my near death experiences came from that problem with a miscarriage. I physically died January 2, January 4, and March 29 of 1977. And you know, I mean, each time my world changed, but you've got to realize that in my case, I was busy doing all kinds of things long before I had anything like a near-death experience or ever even heard of any such thing. I started all kinds of psychic classes and large lectures, um, um, calling all kinds, hundreds and thousands of people. And I finally went to the Attorney General in the state of Idaho and incorporated what we were doing. We were called Inner Forum. And Inner Forum is Idaho's first nonprofit metaphysical corporation. And working with nearly 3,000 people during this length of time. And, I was always into things like this, always. I was born near Snake River Canyon. So I've been a canyon person all of my life. Born within like maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles from the canyon, and so I call my my memoir autobiography. Bear in mind, I have no idea what a memoir is, so I call it a memoir autobiography, and I call that Edge Walker: The Many Lives and Deaths of PMH Atwater. Well, that's because um, the canyons have always been a part of my life, and I've always been experimenting. I did my first double-blind study at the age of 5. Really, 5 years old. I wanted to prove, um, I wanted to find out why mud pies had different colors. And so I set up all kinds of experiments to find out, okay, why does this mud pie over here be dark and this one over here be light or different shades and colors? And I found out that the culprit, what was causing all of these differences was the sun. And that was, yeah. And then as a child, a death everywhere. Everywhere was death. Well, it was World War II. And we have Pearl Harbor and we have the Nazis and um when I went to the movies as a little kid, they would always have um they would have a little bit of a news a little bit of a news, and there would always be Hitler standing in front of this big podium and what I call the goose stepper stepping by. And I did not like Hitler. And so I grew up with death. Everywhere there was death. In those days, if someone died in the war effort, you were given a large gold decal that you put in your living room window. And so walking to school, there was all these homes that had gold decals. I, I, and this one particular morning, I think it was four or five new decals, gold stars overnight. And I just stood there and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. Going to school each morning to me was a path of death. So I grew up with death. It was everywhere. Um, and then I finally, well, I had this thing with teachers and this thing with adults because um they were so odd because I always spoke the truth, what I saw, and for me, I was born with synesthesia. Most child experiencers have synesthesia. They get it. It's a difference in the limbic system in the brain. So if you read my book, The Forever Angels, you'll find all about synesthesia. Well, I wasn't a near-death kid. I was just born with it. And that means for me, I could smell color, I could see music, and I could hear numbers. So I had to spend most of my first grade on a tall stool wearing this this dunce cap as an example of a bad child that told lies. Well, I wasn't lying. That's what I saw. So at the end of the first grade, I decided that all adults are stupid and I was never going to be one. And I've had a very interesting life. I come from Idaho. I was born in Twin Falls, died 3 times in Boise. So I tell everybody, born in Twin Falls, died in Boise. Um, and it took my life, a very odd life, and turned it upside down. I was raped, and ah, the man who raped me came back and said that the only reason he did that was that something like that had happened to his daughter, and he wanted to find out if he could do what the man did to his daughter, and then walked out the door and slammed the door. It just crazy, crazy. Um, that um, that caused death number 3. So let's go back to death number 1. Death number one. Ah, I was pregnant. I was in my bathroom, and I was having the miscarriage in the bathroom, and the baby came out, and there was blood everywhere, and I floated up above my body. And in my case, the light was what was a the bathroom light. You know, it wasn't some big God thing. It was the bathroom light. And I floated up to the bathroom light and looking down at all the blood everywhere. You don't become someone you're not when you have a near-death experience. And I've always been tidy. And so the first thing I did after I went back into my body was ah, clean up the mess. You know, it, uh, uh, when I was out of my body up against that light, I had all these questions. Why am I here? What's going on? And the more questions I had, the more formed like blobs in the air, like an ink blot, blobs. And they were dark and I didn't like them. And then pretty soon, I felt myself pulled back into my body or jerked back into my body, b- right back down to my toes. And like I said, you don't become someone you're not. So the first thing I did was clean up the bathroom because there was blood everywhere. Um, and I found every pillow I could find in the whole place, and I went to my bedroom, and I propped up, my hips and everything as high as I could get them to stop the bleeding, and stuffed everything, yeah, with towels and blankets, and I went to sleep. I could always sleep. Um, Remember, I'm a cop's kid. Well, actually, I've had 5 fathers and 2 mothers. So my favorite father, the last one, was a police officer. And my bedroom was outside of the field where all of the police officers in Twin Falls, Twin Falls, Idaho, came out and had their target practice. And I never heard a single one. Never, never, never. I thought my dad was lying to me. But I could go through anything and it wouldn't bother me. So this time I was bothered in the sense that I wanted to stop this bleeding. I couldn't understand what was happening. I had 3 children. One was grown and gone. One was almost of college age, and one was in elementary school. My husband had walked out on us. So, you're sort of stuck. You've got this family, but what are you going to do for money? I worked for the bank in Boise, Idaho, the big bank, and uh, I just, I just, yeah, I couldn't go to work. I just hurt so bad. And finally, it got through my thick head that maybe I need a doctor. Westerners are very independent. We want to do everything ourselves. So, uh, it's time to go see a doctor. He was only about, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 blocks from where I was. But uh, everything, everything undulated, and the houses kept undulating, and the road was going up and down, and it was hard to hold the wheel on the car, and I drove ever so slowly to get to the doctor, and like I said, the doctor wasn't all that far away, and I remember parking the car and getting out of the car and going into the doctor's office. And the doctor's nurse was there. And she screamed when she saw me. She said, "You look like you're dead." I didn't know how to answer that. So she got the doctor right away, took me in a special room, and found out what had happened, that I'd been raped. And all he did was laugh. Can you imagine a doctor? All he could do was to laugh. He said, "At your age, you know, I hope you enjoyed it." So he gave me a shot in my right thigh vein. Yeah, he knew in looking and in his chart that I could never be given that medication, but he did it anyway. He did it because he was laughing. He thought I was so stupid. Well, maybe I was. And I managed to drive home, and somehow I got in the door, um because I was just hurting so much, especially my leg was just, it was on fire. And so I went to bed, which was the only thing I could think of, was just go to bed. And I did, propped up my legs again and my hips and everything way high, high as I could get, and I went to sleep. And again, going to sleep is not difficult for me. It's just gone. I'm one of those characters. And the next morning, which would have been, well, I don't know, maybe Tuesday morning, not sure, the next morning, my oldest daughter came and she said, "Mom, should I call in late for you at the bank?" And I said, "Yes," because I was just in so much pain. So she and the youngest daughter, who was in grade school, they left, went to school, and I was left alone. And I know that if I'd have had a hacksaw or a blade, I'd have cut my leg off. My right leg. It hurt that much. Ah. And in those days, you didn't have, you know, an iPhone. And you were doing good to have any kind of phone, really. In our ranch style home, we had only one phone in the house, and that was in the kitchen, and it was a wall phone. There was no phone in the bathroom or in the bedroom. So, um, I got out of the bed, and I couldn't walk anymore. I had to crawl. And crawling from my bed clear across the living room and into the dining room. And if I'd have gone another 3 feet, I'd have made I could have pulled that phone down off the wall, but I died. That's it, gone. This time the light was not on, the dining room light. And I remember floating up to the top of the light fixture, and looking around, and just aware that that was my body down there. And I was wondering, is my body dead? Am I gone? Because when I floated up there, um, I saw pain as waves, like a hot day on the driveway or the sidewalk. You see these waves. Well, there were pain waves, and I floated up through the pain waves, up to the light fixture. This was not on. And I remember twirling around that light fixture because I was so glad to be out of that body. It's like, oh, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. And noticing my body down below and thinking, oh, maybe I ought to do something to help my body. So I remember floating down to the body to see there was any air coming in, and the heart, any movement from the heart. And as near as I could tell, it was dead. It was just gone. And I really, really was free. And I remember in my joy looking around and seeing all these kind of like bubbles or thought forms that were everywhere in the air. And every time I'd think a thought, a form would go out. And this idea, thoughts are things. They really are. They really are. And when I made th- that discovery, then I thought, hmm, I wonder if I can make something out of these thoughts. So I decided that I would make a house. And as I was making this decision, my dining room and my home disappeared. And all of a sudden, I was in another place, totally different. And in deciding to make something, it's like, when you're going skiing the first time in the late fall, early winter, and you're putting on those skis and you're going down the slopes, and it hurts. It's a little bit because you haven't been doing it for a while. That's what I felt like. It hurt to create something. There was that sense of pain because I wanted to create a white house, a four square white house, and it had to have a front porch, and the front porch had to have 3 steps going up, and it had to have a brass doorknob. And as near as I could tell, I did it. And I was so overjoyed by then that I went around the house and sort of kicked at it. Yeah, it was real. And went up to the front door and tried to turn the doorknob, and it was just all real. And I thought, oh, you know, that's something inanimate. I wonder if I can make an oak tree. So I did what I could to make an oak tree with roots and lots of leaves, complete with insect holes in the bark. And I was just so overjoyed. And it would take someone like me in that kind of space to understand my joy. So I decided I would create a whole city. So I created all kinds of fences and houses and sidewalks and dogs and cats and people and language. And I remember just just being there and watching everything move, and people being of their own self. And I didn't have to do anything. They were alive. And I thought to myself, wow, this is just, I didn't feel like any kind of God. I just felt like I was doing something that I could do. I just watched it all, and then my loved ones who had died and gone on before me came, especially a grandfather that I'd never met. And he came up to me and introduced himself. And I could meet this incredible man and discovered that some of my traits were his. It's like, wow, this is where I get some of my, personality and traits. It comes from this grandfather who lived in Kansas. Ah, and it was just incredible. And then Jesus came. I mean, really, and I love Jesus. Wow, I can meet Jesus. And it was, I ran up to him and hugged him, and he hugged me. And it wasn't like some kind of God, but rather, this was my elder brother, whom I had not seen for a long time. And it was just so wonderful. And then Jesus left, and all of my loved ones left. And I just thought away the cities and everything else that I had created, and then everything was very, very dark. And suddenly everything that I'd ever done that maybe I shouldn't have done or whatever, um I was there to see it, to witness it, things I'd said or things even that I had thought that might injure somebody or hurt somebody or, you know, negative things. I relived them and I saw them and I heard them and I felt them and I thought, thoughts really are things. Um, it's like, wow, wow, thoughts are things. And I remember sort of pulling back in a way and just the thunder of that discovery that thoughts really are things that that we go on in our lives and we think things and um, we never bother to realize that that maybe the power of our thoughts affect every man and woman and child and tree and lawn and air and water. It affects everything in our environment. Our thoughts are things, and it affects everyone. And I was just so dumbfounded by that, just so struck by that, that um that I felt very ashamed of some of my thoughts and things that I did and how it affected other people. And it's like, oh, jeez. And I found myself forgiving myself. Literally, I forgave myself for that. And when I did, it's like there were sparkles all over everywhere, like like the 4th of July, all these sparkles. And I floated back into my body on a carpet of these sparkles. And I was so dumbfounded, so immersed in the power of forgiveness that instead of going on 3 feet more to get to a phone, I crawled all the way back to my bed and got in my bed. I don't know how, but I did. And laid there for 3 days. Well, actually 2. And my oldest daughter came again. She says, Mom, something's wrong. May I call a doctor or something? Somebody, may I call work, tell them that you can't come in again. And I said, no, 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 I need to go to work. It was the only lucid thought I had was I have to go to work and earn money to pay the bills. I've got to go to work. I had no idea who I was, but I knew I had to go to work. How I dressed, how I got in my car and drove all the way down to the cup of Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho is formed like a cup. the Capitol building and the main part of the city is the bottom of the cup. And everything else are rims, and I was on rim number 1. And how I managed to go down into the city and park my car, I mean, I don't know. They were remodeling the bank, so it was a different kind of place. I parked my car, and we didn't have elevators because we were just renting this space while the main bank was being repaired. So I remember trying to go up the stairs, and I go up a couple and then back a couple and up a couple more and back a couple, and I don't know how I made it to the top of the stairs, but I did. Fortunately, my boss went by and she screamed and she said, You look like you're half dead. You're going to a doctor now." So she got me to a doctor, and the doctor could not believe I was alive. He said, "There's no way you can be alive." Well, there I am. This nurse was there, and he gave me some kind of shot, and instead of saying that I had to go to the hospital, he said, prescribed these very, very dangerous pills, supposed to take one every 4 hours or something like that. And he said, "Go home and be on the sofa and watch TV." So I managed to get the pills, and the pharmacist said, You have to eat before you take the pills, because if you don't, the pills will make you very, very sick and everything will come up." So I took the pills every 4 hours, and I never went to bed. I was on the sofa, and I never turned the TV on, ever, ever, because an interesting thing happened while I was laying on the sofa. This bridge, this sparkly bridge, formed over my chest, and all of my past lives paraded from right to left across that bridge. And so I was just busy watching all my past lives go by. And they ended it in a very strange kind of critter. Um, and I could hear everybody's thoughts at the same pitch that I could hear their voice. So I wouldn't talk to anybody because I could hear what they were thinking. Um, this went on for several days until the medicine was over. I I remember going down to the genital area and then the stomach, the womb, and this kind of thing, and apologizing to everybody. Um, and I said, very sorry that they had to go through all of this. And I just sort of lay there and watched the parade go by. And at the end of about, I don't know, several days, I was able then to walk and go to work. I worked like half a day, and then well, a few hours, and then half a day, and a few more hours, and then a full day. And I worked at the bank. I worked in the analytical department, and just just really, it's like I was there, but I wasn't there, because I was a different person. I really was. I was different. Um, and I just, I had set up Idaho's, inner form and done all these things for everybody, and I just couldn't do that anymore. And as I lay there, and then did exercises. And what I had to do, I finally found a really good doctor. He was a naturopath, not an MD, it was a naturopath. And he had me relearn how to sit, how to stand, how to walk, how to tell the difference between left and right, how to see properly, hear properly, and relearn everything from scratch. I put myself in a homemaking class. So I'd learn about sheets and pillows and making beds and that kind of thing. I literally learned everything over again. Of course, my kids thought I was nuts, but two things that really helped me. And this is going to be funny, but there were two books that people gave me, friends gave me, and said read these, and I did. Um, and and I became all of the people, good or bad, in each of the books. And in doing that, I relearned how to live. And the books were Dune by Frank Herbert and The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. And those books were my life, my godsend. And I mean, in Dune, the Jezreel witches, and they had their special thing that they said. But I sort of took some of what they were doing and made my own statement. It was a litany of fear. Let's see, how does that litany go? Because I want to give that to you. It was a wonderful litany. Here it is. Fear is the mind killer. It is the little death. I will face my fear. It will pass over me, around me, and through me. And when it is gone, I will remain.
Oh, wow, that is
And
powerful.
I was just so powerful. And that helped me so much in relearning life and coming back. Yeah.
And
And then,
those books explain why you have such a love for life now.
well, they helped me to heal myself and bring myself back. And but that fall, the biggie happened because it's really hard um to get my legs to work, and I was dragging a leg, and the right leg, and I was still in a lot of pain. And my friends and my doctor decided that I had to go up to Seattle, Washington. This is the first week of November, I think it was, and attend the Mind Miraculous Symposium. So that doctor got up at 5:30 in the morning. Can you imagine a doctor getting up at 5:30 in the morning to give his patient a shot so that she could go? Her friends could take her all the way up to Seattle, Washington. And that's what happened. Got up there, minor, and the first speaker, and I was on the aisle seat, and the first speaker was a physicist from Stanford. And he believed that everything happens at the same time in the same place. And he called it the eternal now. I can't remember a thing from his talk, but at the end of his talk, he flashed up on this huge screen. I mean, like 6 stories tall. I mean, 5 stories tall. A huge screen. What? Yeah, what his mathematics told him was the eternal now, that there really is an eternal now, and you can prove it through physics. So he flashed up on that screen exactly what I saw in my third near-death experience. And I remember jumping in up from my aisle seat and going to the fleeing the place and collapsing under a wall sconce and just rocking back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, saying, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. He saw it too. I'm not crazy. Because you see, in my third near-death experience, I left this world. I left this world and I was out in the sky, and this lip of light opened up, and I went into the lip of the light, and I saw what that physicist was showing. I saw it. And I went up to it, and I wanted to pass through the middle, because it, to my mind, to my sense, I was going back to God. I didn't want to live on earth anymore. I didn't want anything to do with anything. I want to get out. And my son had just returned from a cruise school and in Portugal. And then he got home. And that's when this guy came who had raped me. And Kelly, his name is Kelly, was at the Black Angus bar. And I sound a great big Taurus, big neck, bar. Ah. So he's sitting at the bar, tossing a few of his friends. And he didn't tell me this until a year later. And he had a mug of ale up and then crashed it down. He says, my mom's in trouble. I have to go home and help my mother. So he got in the car and drove home and found my body. And we did. We raised our children, 3 children, to always go within before they ever go without. So always go within for instructions before you go anywhere else for instructions. He saw my body, and he did what he was taught to do, and that is to go within. What am I to do with my mother's body? And he was told, talk. Doesn't matter what you say, just talk. Had my son gone to a phone and called for help, they could not have saved me. But because my son spoke, where I was, I heard him. And I heard unconditional love on his voice. And I did not know unconditional love was possible in the earth plane, but he was giving it. So I knew I had to go back and learn what my son already knew. But in that turning, that's when the voice spoke. The voice spoke. I call it the voice like none other. And that voice said, test revelation. You are to do the research. 1 book for each death. And book number 1, the first book, he never named, that voice never named. Second book, Future Memory. If you haven't read Future Memory, read it. It's not a book, it is a labyrinth. And I was shown how to do the labyrinth. It will It will really change your brain just reading Future Memory. And the third one was A Manual for Developing Humans. And that's the book that tells you how to live. And it's a fun book, has lots of thought form drawings in it. I did them all. And I did what God told me to do. And so I did those two books. And then I was to research the whole field. So the next year, um, I quit my job on a Monday morning. That was the day I was supposed to go in and talk to my boss and get a bank title. In those days, women didn't get bank titles. I was going to get a bank title. Big deal. And it's Monday morning, and I walked in and I said, I'm very, very sorry. But I'm quitting. I'm going to chase rainbows. And my boss just went white. She said, sit down, don't say another word. And my boss didn't do things like this. But that particular one, she was awakened at 4 a.m. And at 4 a.m, she had to go to her boss and say, yeah, you have to replace me because she's going to chase rainbows. Same words. And all I could do was slap her desk, and I said, that's not fair. You knew about it before I did. But I did. I sold or stored everything and walked out on my life and journeyed across the United States, fulfilling all my childhood dreams and wishes, and wound up in Falls Church, Virginia, because that's where I was supposed to go. I didn't know what a Falls Church was, but it's a city. And that's where I began my research. And that's where it all began. And 44 years worth, 21 books. Some of my work is in Lancet Medical Journal.
It's been such a gift to the community to have you doing all this work. Um, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. It's great work. I think near-death experiences are and the work that goes along with them. And it's kind of like the beginning of spirituality. It was for me anyways, the beginning of my spiritual journey, but how much more spiritual and closer to the one can you get than studying death? Death is the doorway to all that we wonder about. And so you are doing just phenomenal work in all of your books and everything. You contribute so much. It's been a life worth of amazing contribution.
I even pounded on doorways.
Did you?
I did. In Michigan, I was pounding on doorways. Anybody in your house have a near-death experience? I was that bold. Because I knew I had to do this work. So I did. I did. Oh, it was Lansing. It was a funeral home. And half of the attendants got up and walked out, and the other half stayed because as I was talking about my own experience, a man sitting way across the room, but right there in front of me, he looked just like Daddy's song, SOGN, the Norwegians who raised me. And he looked like Daddy's song, and I knew it couldn't be Daddy's song. And he was damning me and condemning me and pointing at me, and it's like, Daddy's song. But he left, and half the group followed him. And I found out he was a Lutheran minister, and it was his congregation, and they got up and walked out on me. And it was okay. I mean, it really was okay. I learned from that, and it was okay. It helped me to understand people's responses to the near-death experience and to even dying, and people's responses to it and why. So it was a good experience.
Near-death experiences are more acceptable now here in the 2020s because of the research that you did and people like you did in the 70s. And that's where it really started. So that means a lot.
I want to tell everybody, read The Forever Angels. You must read that book because it shows, it really proves in my mind that you can have a near-death experience at birth. You can have a near-death experience inside your mother's womb. In my study of 397 people, 90% could remember being born. They could remember the doctor. They remember what happened to them. Um, Everybody, wake up. We've got to have more. We've got to wake up to what can happen to a human being and realize that even the baby's born is crying, that baby is thinking and knowing. And babies often take out of body trips. They are going to wherever their mother is or their father is. They know what's going on in the family. Absolutely. And a child who has a near-death experience will know more than their parents. They'll know more than their school teachers. They're incredible, incredible. You need to get that book, The Forever Angels. Solid research, really good, solid research. Yeah,
Good advice. I'm going to add that one to my list.
yeah.
You've
The
got
Forever.
you have quite a few that I want to knock out, so I'm going to add that one. Are your books available on Amazon or where would I find those?
Yes, they're all available on Amazon. You can also get them from IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And yes, get on my website, www.pmhatwater.com. I've written 21 books now. I've started a new research project. Yes,
Another?
that voice came back. Yes, that voice came back. The voice from 1977 came back last year, August. Spoke to me again. And it said that I am to do research on, hold your hats, any near-death experiencer who during their near-death experience or within 1 year afterward. Now listen to that. During their near-death experience or within 1 year afterward had an alien experience. I'm doing the research now. Yes, I will write a book on it. It will only be for those people who during their near-death experience or within 1 year afterward had an alien experience. So I'm not looking for after that. And what I'm finding with most near-death experiencers and most other people, it's that they have it after that.
Mhm.
maybe 3 years after, 2 years after, maybe 5 years after, and on and on and on. But not during their near-death experience or within 1 year afterward. And that's tricky. And that's turning up a whole new leaf. And I'm going to be speaking on this at the Big IN's conference this fall in Phoenix. What is it, August 28th through September 1 or something like that. So I will be talking about my findings there.
I'll be there, hopefully.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, you have been amazing. I'm really excited to hear about your new research. And thank you for all your past research and all the talks that you do, all the podcasts that you do, just sharing your story and getting the word out there. It is so important and it means a lot to me. Um, and so if my viewers did have questions or they wanted more information, would you recommend your website as the best way to find you?
Well, certainly. I don't have a lot of time to answer things person to person. But yes, you can get on my website and find out anything you want to know. www.pmhatwater.com.
And you also have a free newsletter that you send out with a plethora of information. And how can we get signed
Sign
up for
up
that?
for it. Sign up. Get on my website and sign up for it.
Good. Okay.
Go over to newsletter and sign up. By the way, there is an archive, so you can you know uh, um you can look at it beforehand. But the newsletter is only for the curious. So if you're not curious, you won't want my newsletter.
Don't
Because
bother signing
I
up.
cover all kinds of things in the newsletter. Yeah,
Well, I'm curious, so I'm going to sign up for it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Too.
Thank you, PMH.
Thank
You've
you.
been a pleasure. You're so energetic and full of positive energy and just happy life force. It's been amazing to sit across the computer from you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm 86, and this fall I get to be 87. Won't that be fun?
That will be fun. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.